Okay, I'm going to get started because there's nothing worse than things running late. Good morning, everyone. These lights are very bright, so if I look like I'm squinting at you, I am. And if I sound like I'm a bit croaky, I am. This is my fourth or fifth Salesforce event in the last few days. I ran a conference like this in London called London's Calling. That was last Friday. World Tour was on Thursday in London. So I am indeed croaky. But yeah, sleep's boring, isn't it? So let's just crack on and get to another conference. So welcome, and thank you, of course, to our sponsors who make these sessions possible. So there we go. So if you're here for Use Salesforce to drive adoption in Salesforce, then you're in the right place. And I am Louise Lockie, so croaky voice aside, I'm from London. And there, as I mentioned, I run a conference a bit like this called London's Calling. I'm the Women in Tech leader. I am a Salesforce MVP. I do have a golden hoodie, but it doesn't travel with me, particularly not at this time of year when it's too hot to be wearing a hoodie at all. One of the things I love to do is come to conferences like this and speak to people, meet new people. And you can see there from some logos, I've been very lucky. In the before times, I could get out a lot more and travel and do this sort of thing. So I'm really excited to be doing it again, thus the croaky voice, because I've said yes to all the things. I've got 18 certifications, and I've just managed to update this slide with the new logos because it was a pain in the behind to reformat them all when they changed the logos. So yeah, that's me. Okay, so what we're talking about today is essentially all about adoption. And I'm sure we can all agree that if we don't have adoption of our systems, the rest of it is pretty useless, because if we don't get them to use it, the very best system in the world is redundant. So, how can we work with the system to increase adoption? Now, I've delivered sessions on adoption before, thinking about change management and things like that. This today is more about how we can use Salesforce to increase adoption. So some of the tools, and some of them are fairly new and not talked about that much, that we can use to do that. Because I think we're all going to be in agreement that adoption is key to the success of the system. If they're not using it, one of the things I always say, you can that old saying, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And I feel like that you can build the best system in the world, but if they don't use it, if you've got blockers there for them, then as I say, it will fail. Because we want this. We want happy users. Happy users who know what they're doing in the system, they know why they're doing it, and they find it easy to do. And they feel like they've got a system that has the answers for them, not just asking them to do things. So that's what we want, happy users. Because we don't want this. We don't want frustrated users, because what happens when they're frustrated? They get an error message they don't know what to do with, they don't know how to get past, they don't know what it means. They are looking at a page layout that's way too long and complicated, and they feel like, this isn't worth it. I'm going to go back to my Post-it notes, my Excel spreadsheets, I'm going to base everything in Outlook, and we know that can happen. Because not only do we have those pain points and the adoption drops, but the other thing is that, of course, us admins get completely swamped with requests. I've forgotten how to do it. What does this error message mean? I'm getting an error message. All these things that I'm sure everyone here has heard before, and never with the amount of detail you need to be able to answer the question. That's what we want to avoid. Okay. But I'm here to show you that we have some tools in the system that can help us with adoption. As I say, it's a much bigger piece, and we can talk about change management and what's in it for me and all of that. Yeah, absolutely, that's all valid. But there are actually tools in the system that can help us. So these tools are, under a little menu in your setup menu, we have a subtitle of user engagement. And under that, we have a few different things that I'll talk about today, as well as some other items. So under that, we can see we've got in-app prompts, we've got walkthroughs, we're going to talk a little bit about learning paths, the help menu, And also I'll talk a little bit about page layouts, just from but that could be a whole session in itself, and regularly is, in fact. Okay. And all I'm going to talk about today is all completely free, in the system, out of the box available. I don't work for Salesforce. I'm not here to promote any of their products. I just want to show you admins how you can use the system completely for free to help drive adoption. Okay, so I'm going to start with prompts. So prompts, they're called all sorts of different things, but they are part of in-app guidance. So you may have heard about in-app guidance. And in-app guidance essentially is split into two, prompts and then walkthroughs. So I'll start with prompts. So there are a few different types of prompt. There is a floating prompt, which essentially means it doesn't float. It's a bit of a sneaky name. It means that you can pick one of the grids on the page and say top right, bottom left, etc. out of the 9. So that looks a bit like this. That one there is a top right. Then we've got a docked prompt, and what that means is the only place it can go is bottom left, right. Oh, goodness, get mixed up, but yes, right, bottom right, as you can see here. And that's a bit bigger. You can put images, you can put media in it, and things like that. And then you have a targeted prompt, and that's like this, where you can actually fix it on a piece or a record or an area of the page. So here in my example that I'll show later, I've got it tagged to the favorites icon. But you'll see when I do a little demo later how you can do that. Okay, so they're the 3 types of prompt. So the reason I'm talking about these is because they can bring your guidance, your reminders, even your user guides into the system, so that when a user has a problem, they can see these prompts. And I'll talk later as how you can all get them generated, almost, and they can then get the help right there in the system. So hopefully that means that they're not running off to ask you the answer, they're not raising a ticket, they're not downing tools and sulking because it didn't work. So these are some of my use cases. So the first one is for new users, welcoming them to the system, giving them some overall guidance. And I like to do that in a docked prompt because it's a bit bigger, you can put some images in there, and you've got a bit more space to play with its rich text. New features, so there if Salesforce has released a new feature, like with the new release, now when you create a new report, it looks a bit different, doesn't it? You can, when you pick the report type, it then shows you whether it's custom or standard. You can see which fields are in it, you can see which other reports are there. That's snuck in totally under the radar for me. But that's something like that you might want to highlight to users. Building a new report has changed, or that first step of building a new report has changed. The next one I've got here is guidance for known trouble spots. And so this I like to think of is when, like the thing that I keep having to say to people, that I keep getting the same question. So, okay, how do I then answer that in the system? Because I know people get caught up on that. So let me work that through and really give them the answer straight away and see if that reiterates it and consolidates their memory on that. Driving positive behaviour. Now, I'm a self-confessed data geek, but apparently some people don't want to fill out all the fields and don't enjoy picking from those pick lists and things like that. So, how can you prompt them at the right time to say, remember, you're creating a new lead. This is what we require of you. And sometimes having it there, yes, of course, we can make them required fields. We can have validation rules, but there you can explain why, which is totally different to just having an error pop up or a validation rule pop up. Tips and tricks, so again, just little things you think that people should know. Sometimes that's on a new-ish feature. One example I've used in the past is showing people split view on a list view. Did people know you can switch between standard view, Kanban, and split view? I think split view for certain objects is amazing, and it goes back to the old console days. I know console's still around, but the console days where if you're working through a list and you've got high volumes, well, this is like the standard version that you don't have to enforce on everyone. It can be there, isn't it? And the other one's announcements. So you can use it to make company announcements or downtime maybe, a bit like Salesforce does for us sometimes. Okay. So I'm just going to show these, with lots to cover today, so I'm going to talk fairly quickly on these, and I believe the slides and recordings will be available afterwards. So this is my new users one, so this is just an example of this, simply saying, welcome to your CRM, this is the key things you can do with it. So of course, completely customizable. I'll show you how I did this later. And there you can see I've got a link, take me to the user guide. So that could be to your own, maybe your internal Confluence page, or a PDF, or My Trailhead, or Sales Enablement as it's called now, or anything that you might want to take them to. Or indeed, you don't. Or it could take them to another prompt or a walkthrough. More of that a bit later. So new features. So this one is around opportunity paths. So let's say I've just enabled opportunity paths. People don't know what they are, so I can have those there. And I wanted that to be a bit of a bigger one. So again, that's a docked prompt, but that's another idea around that. And I'll talk about in a moment about how you surface these and what rules you can apply so that people don't just see them all the time, and you're not, that new welcome to Salesforce doesn't go out to everyone, it only goes out to your new users, for example. Okay. The next one, this is my, if I had a penny for every time I was asked that, the people say, my dashboard figures aren't right, their numbers aren't adding up, that's last month's total, I should be on 200 million, not 150 million. Sounds good, doesn't it? So, something like that, having every now and again it pop up, figures not matching, refresh your dashboard. Remember, dashboards don't refresh automatically unless you've scheduled them, etc. So think of that, what questions do you always get asked, then put it in the system. And again, I'll show you later how you can actually let them go find these because there's essentially a URL that can generate them, which is super handy. And then the next one, drive positive behaviour. As I say, get them, what do they need to do with their leads? Well, we're telling them here, work in your leads, don't forget to. And then you can say, these things are required, which again gives them the message rather than just the error or the prompt. Tips and tricks, so this is my targeted prompt. So this is actually attached to that little star, the little favourites menu, introducing that to them. I'm surprised by how many users don't use the favourites menu, because we know you can attach it, you can have reports, you can have dashboards, you can have opportunities, accounts, anything you like in there pretty much, and then you've got a handy shortcut. So using the system to give them a tip, remember to use this, it's a handy tool. That's that one there. Okay, so each of these things, the text I've added, the got it, that's obviously custom. That's my dismiss button. You can customize that as well. Okay, and then my last one here is announcements. So here we've got an all hands call. I want them to register. I surface that for a certain period of time, and they can see, okay, and I'm going to register here. They click through, straight through. It's the link to the Zoom. You've got them registered. And here also, you'll see, we'll do this one in a moment, that's on the marketing app. So that's not going to necessarily show to the sales users. Okay. All right, so I think this is where I'd go into live demo mode. Yes, it is. No hands, pre-recorded. I'm not silly. Okay, here we go. We're into the system now. So what I'm going to do now, or what I did do now, is create that announcement one. So it was a fixed prompt, a floating prompt, and it had the announcement. So I go into my setup menu and I go to look for in-app guidance, because that's what it's called. I click new. I then simply have to navigate to where I want the prompt to appear. So here I'm going to go to the marketing app. And then once I get to the page I want to go to, so I want it on the home page, nice and easy, but I could navigate to the campaigns tab if I wanted, or other things like that. So then I click add, and I have to choose between a single prompt and a walkthrough. I'll show you the walkthroughs later. And then once I pick prompt, I have these three choices that I described earlier. So this first one is a floating prompt. So then I have to choose where is it going to go. Now, I think in this, just for example's sake, I pick any app. Now, really, thinking about it, as I mentioned, I only want that on the marketing app for my marketing users. But you can see you've got the choice. Then you pick which of the 9 grids on the page do you want it to appear in, so which block. So I have to pick that. So I can go. Then I give it a title and my text. Watch me type here. There we go. So I've added my text in. You can see I can make it a little bit rich. It's not, these ones don't have as much as the doc, but I can still put bold in there. I could add media in there if I wanted, and then I can choose what my dismiss button says. So it can be dismiss, but you saw one earlier where I said got it. It could be like okay, it can be whatever you want, and of course it can be in your language. So then once I've done it, I click Save, and then this is where we've got some of the settings. So this is the action button. So you can have a OK, got it button, and you can have a take me to somewhere else button. So here, of course, I want them to register for the all hands call for marketing. So I put in my Zoom address and put in the button label. Okay. So then we have to say, where is it being scheduled for? Because this call is on a certain date. So I don't want to be prompting them to sign up for it after that date. And I may be getting ahead of myself and I want it to go live on Monday. So we can put in the date, and then we put in the number of times we want it to appear and the time between them. So this is where you've got more control over how often they're going to see it. There's a bit more around that later as well. Then you can assign it by profile and by permission, not by permission set. I've got everything crossed that's coming because that to me is a bit of a must-have for this. So it's by actual permission, so something like send mass email or Lightning Experience user, so that kind of permission. Then I put in the name and the details, and you can see at the bottom there on this screen that there's a shareable URL. And so you can actually pick up that URL then and use that and surface that to people. And that means they can generate the prompt on demand if they wanted. And I'll show you later where you can, a few ideas of where you can put that. So I'm being very good and I'm putting in description, obviously, pat myself on the back. Okay. There's the shareable URL. And I can save my prompt. So that is the first one that I've created. That's my marketing all hands call. That's only going to surface that number of times I stated, and it will, I think I'm starting again, no? Oh no, here I'm editing it, sorry. So I'm showing you that once I've created it, I've made it live, I can still go back in and edit it, which is good to know. Okay, so there it is. So it's only going to appear during that window that I specified, and they're only going to see it the number of times that I specified as well. Okay, so fast and furious, we're into the next one. So now we're going to create another one. So we're going to create a docked prompt this time and add an image. So the exact same before, from that in-app page, I click add and I choose which type. Single prompt again, but this time I'm going to go for a docked prompt, which is that bigger one in the corner. So again, this page, any app, this page, this app, that combination that you saw there. I put the title, the header and the title. So there's an extra one here for this docked one because it's a bit bigger. Okay, typos as well. Pop in my text. And you can do a bit more with this. Okay, you can see here, lovely. Make it bullet points, bold, etc. So you can make it look quite good. There is some custom branding you can do as well, so you can really make it look very on brand. Okay, I can upload an image, so I'm going to add my little company logo here just to really personalize that experience as they log in. You can see that's super easy to do. There it goes. Put in some alt text, of course, particularly if I spell it right. There we go. There's my image. I've moved my image above the text rather than below the text. Check it. No, prefer it up below. Super. Okay. Saving it, I've got the same options. So again, I can put an action button to take me here, take me to the user guide, for example. So that was a docked prompt. So pretty straightforward, but there's lots of things you can play with there, lots of options. And again, you pick when do you want it to start from and to, and the time you want it to, the number of times you want it to show. I really do think when we can do these by permission set rather than profile or permission, then that will be a bit of a game changer for really being able to micro control who sees them. And as you know, there's generally a move away from profiles to permission sets. I'm talking about that at Midwest Streaming in July, if anyone fancies a trip to Minneapolis. Okay, so there we go. My second prompt was created, and that is now in the system. Okay, so now I'm showing you a targeted prompt, just to show you the differences between the three. So this is going to be my favourites one. So the difference here is you can see, look on this page here, it's highlighted which areas I can attach it to. So any of the main components, but also the menu items along the top as well. So you navigate to the page you wanted to attach it to, and then it will show you what you can actually attach it to. So it's a bit more pinpointed than top right. Okay, so I've done it with my favourites menu. So here I am, text, description. This part's all the same, but it's just where you attach it. Okay, so floating, you pick from the grid, docked, only one option, targeted just gives you that bit more. And they're adding more and more to areas that are being allowed by targeted at the moment, so it's really useful. Okay, so that is that one there. Okay, so they're the three types of prompt. So going back to the schedule page here, you can see that we pick the date range, and then we pick the frequency. So what we've got there is times to show and days in between. Now, what I'll show you in a moment is the overall settings page. You can configure how many times people see any prompt, because we're talking about this one prompt. But say they've already seen 5 today, they're going to be mighty peed off, aren't they? Because that's, and then they just go ignore them and just dismiss them all. So that's what you absolutely want to avoid. So just bear that in mind. And the show when the page loads button there means that it will show irrespective to that global setting. So just always just be aware of that, because you might think this is the best thing ever. I'm going to get 0 help calls now because I've put all the information they could possibly want in the system. But you might think they're the best thing ever. They might think, okay, 1 a day is enough. And also, again, using the shareable links to let them generate them when they need them is a bit of a win from my point of view, or in my opinion. Okay, so the other thing to show you on the setup page then for the prompts is, this is how it looks. So you can see we can keep building them out here. So we've got the menu here, items here. We can see how many times they've been viewed. We can, of course, add new ones. We can test them, which essentially means you get to run through and see them in action. And we can go into the settings. And the settings looks like this. So this is where you can say the delay between prompts. Bless you. And the default will be that they will see no more than 1 every 24 hours. So that's Salesforce's default. So if you've gone really gung-ho and built dozens, by default, they're only going to see the first one that they encounter each day. But you can change that using the custom setting. And if you do the custom setting, then you can say how often do you want them to appear. Okay, so just this does require planning and knowing your user base, knowing what how much they're going to want to see them. As admins, we've had Salesforce prompting us for quite some time, haven't we? MFA, MFA, MFA. Like, stop it. It's not enforced yet properly. So we don't want our users to do the same thing. I think Salesforce, they did too many. Don't fall into that trap. Use them cleverly. Use them as you think will be correct. Okay, so on prompts, they don't work in Classic, but I mean, shouldn't be an issue anymore, she says. We can have 500. So meaning you can have lots of different ones built out. So say my marketing all hands call one, that's not going to be active all the time. I'm going to have it active for the autumn call, and then inactive, and then I'll just change the dates, edit the link, and activate it again for the spring call, for example. We could have lots of different ones, particularly when you can get them as granular as permission set, you'll essentially be able to assign them to people. So you could have lots in the system set up, but only have them configured to work in certain situations. And of course, you can deactivate them, activate them. So I don't think that 500 number is ever going to be a problem. They don't work on mobile, just thinking of visually, they just wouldn't be on there. And there is an algorithm to assign whether they have been surfaced to users. So if you've got it set to only do one every 48 hours and someone said, I got 5 yesterday, I mean, they're probably exaggerating, but do know that you would need to look behind the scenes to see, well, did they really? Because if the system doesn't detect that they saw it, it could be caching or something like that. So there's an algorithm that controls that. And then they're off in sandboxes. So if you're doing some testing in your sandbox, you're like, where are my blooming prompts? They haven't appeared. That will be why. Just remember to go in and turn them on again. Okay. And there are 2 AppExchange packages that might be useful. One has some actual prompts that you can load and then see. You can't edit them, but you can clone them and then change them or use them as a guideline. And there's another one, which is reports and dashboards that you can just load in, save you doing it yourself. But you can just write reports just using the report type. Okay, so I'm going to move on to walkthroughs. Now, walkthroughs, again, these are free. I am not talking to you about anything that's paid for. But we get free of charge. I'm from South East London. My THs and Fs all sound the same. So we get free of charge. But that's free active ones, free of charge. So again, play the game and have different ones set up. After that, you do need to pay for them. But again, I think if you use those free cleverly, then they can work quite well for you. So free active, free of charge. Any more require what used to be called My Trailhead, but now is Sales Enablement, rubbish name change, licenses. And essentially, all a walkthrough is 10 prompts of any kind that you join together. So you build out the prompts. So for each one, you say prompt 1. This is on the opportunity page. And here I'm doing this. Prompt 2, do a targeted on the details of the opportunity page. Prompt 3, and so forth. So I'll show you this in a moment. And again, you can use a combination of any of those 3. And once you start building them, they can be reordered. You can have 500 in your org, not including packaged ones that come in through Managed Package. But again, you only can have 3 active. So if you try and activate a 4th, you'll have to go back in and make inactive one of them. Okay, so let's have a look at how we do that. So we're doing on the same menu, because you saw earlier I had a choice of walkthroughs. So I am going to click New, and I'm going to navigate to where I want to go. So I'm going to go to Leads. So I'm going to go to a lead. So it's the lead page. And then I'm picking walkthroughs. Okay. So think how you could use this. Lots of different ways you can prompt someone through a series of steps. So I'm just going to give them some intro to lead, what we're expecting of them. I'm just going to do 3 or 4, but you can do up to 10. Okay, so my first prompt, just the same as normal. Here I am picking a floating prompt, putting in my text. And you can see on the left-hand side, my first prompt is appearing there. So you can see how you build out the path there and that you can reorder them. Okay, so these steps are no different. Okay, so nothing new here. Just going to go through, give it a button, but automatically I'll be able to go on to the next step because these are now part of a walkthrough. Okay, so then number 2. I then navigate to where I want that to be. So now I'm saying now I want a docked prompt, and I build that out. And again, this. I know there's lots of tools that can do this, but if you're working for a small company or you just want to see how it could work, this is free in the system. And again, you can generate a URL that means that they can just click on that URL and see this pop up, and it will take them straight to the lead page and follow them through the steps, which I think is really powerful. Okay, so I'm putting in my second step here, my second prompt. So this part, again, all the same as normal. They're just prompts that you're seeing together. But I can navigate to different parts of the page, different areas. So I could go from accounts to opportunities, and so forth. Also bear in mind that people's aptitude, people's willingness to go through 10 steps may be minimal. So, know your users. I think 4 is about a good number. Okay, so this one, I'm loading a file. I'm talking them through how to create leads, what we need them to do, and then to work through and mark the status as complete. So there I've just made an image of that mark as complete button to put it in the prompt. Here we go. Okay, so I'm making it a little bit bold, making it look good, and go on. So you can see down the left-hand side, that's where all of my steps would live. Okay, so then add another one. Which one shall I do? Floating one this time again. Pick where it's appearing, and so forth. Okay. So I think these are really great to have the plan, have the idea. You can put media in there, you can put images in there, you can, with a targeted, you could pick a certain part of your detail page and so forth. So just think about how you could use them. Think about your use cases. Because your users then, the more they know how to use the system, the more they will use the system. Everyone's a winner. Okay, then we're converting our lead. I think this is the last one I do. I recall. Give it a dismiss label, and then this is set up in the exact same way as the rest of the prompts. Okay. Save. Okay, so this here, I leave my typos in. This is the action name, and I'm putting in my lead walkthrough. No, it's not my lead walkthrough. I'll remember that in a minute. So even pre-recorded, I'm leaving my human mistakes in. So I put my action in there, my actionable button, and give my link there. It nicely goes red as soon as you start typing, just to remind you to format your URL correctly. Always nice to be judged by a system when you haven't even finished it. Okay. So there we go. We've got the date range again in, exactly the same. So it's a series of up to 10 prompts, but really useful. Okay. So the same. Okay, so this is those are walkthroughs. So I've allocated it to my sales user, and then I'm saving it. And the key thing again is that at the bottom of this screen, you've got the shareable URL, so I can put that URL into my materials, into another prompt, into my help menu, into my learning path, anything like that. Okay, so that's our walkthroughs. And there are, again, 2 AppExchange packages, free and 4, the same as before. They are ones to install some, to give you ideas. Of course, if they're inactive, then they don't count towards your limits, so that's fine. And the other is reports and dashboards. Okay. So, next thing to talk about, what's the time? Good, is learning paths. So this, again, is another feature in Salesforce. Again, used to be part of my Trailhead, but they've taken some of it out and given us more for free. And I'm all for that because, we haven't all got big budgets. And sometimes even using these tools as a proof of concept might get you some budget, but we've got to have something to work with at the beginning. So learning paths, I'm sure you've all seen them. On the top of the page, we get that little Trailhead symbol in our org that says, it's a learning path. And if you've got the admin permission, it keeps popping up with admin type modules to take. But there's more to it than that, bless you. You can actually use it and customize and put your own materials in there as well. Now, if you do use My Trailhead Sales Enablement, then you can do that. But if you don't, you can just have links to other materials. So say you've got an internal system, the way you put your training videos or information, you can put that in there as well. So you can use, maybe HR have another system, you can, in Salesforce, make that your point of all your materials to send them off to those other systems, if that's what you've got. So what this does, you see this little icon up the top here, that is what everyone will see. And I don't know if you've looked into it yourselves, because it works out of the box and prompts us as admins in particular. But out of the box, it will just surface, if you're on the account object, it will surface up account-related Trailhead modules. But I don't know about you, I obviously love Trailhead. You know, it's a great tool. However, it's a great tool for me as a Salesforce professional using Salesforce, because it teaches me how to use Salesforce. It tells me about things I don't know. It introduces me to new features. For my users, I think sometimes some of the modules / most of the modules are not for them, even the ones that are flagged as for business users, because they're talking about a generic out-of-the-box account page, and most of them will look different. We'll have our different fields on opportunity and so forth. So I personally, and I feel like someone might take away like something like, you know, strike me down, excommunicate me for saying it. I personally have never recommended Trailhead to my users, because then they go, oh, can I use that? No, we don't use that. Or when's that button? Or can we turn on this? No. And of course, also, they're not always that great in Trailhead of saying what's paid for and not, because, yeah, they're a sales company, it's fine. So here, what you can do is you could surface up some of those, but you can additionally put in your links. Okay, so if you've got other materials, you can put them in there. And those links could be links to generate your prompts or links to generate your walkthroughs. So my lead walkthrough there, say I've got it surfaced that it doesn't appear all the time, because, I mean, they don't need to see it all the time. On my lead page, I can just create link lead walkthrough, or whatever I call it, in my system, and put that link that you saw on the page where I saved the walkthrough. And that means when they're on leads, at any time they can click on their little Trailhead icon, and instead of seeing a lead Trailhead module, they will see the link to my walkthrough. They click on that, and it will just open up the walkthrough on page 1. Even if they're on a different page, they can do it if you want to. So I think that is really powerful, because that means you can use these prompts and walkthroughs at the right place at the right time, let them go to them if they need to, and they then know that in the system, they've got access to the support they need. Now, of course, it could also be your user guide or your video tutorials or your Confluence page or anything else you're using. It could be a link to your help desk if they need to do that, but you can put that information in there. So you can put that under Learning Path. So what you can see here is, because I'm an admin, I've got 2 tabs. I've got My Learning Content, I've got Manage Learning Assignments. If I'm not an admin, I haven't been given the permission to create them, I'd only see My Learning. And you can see I've got required, suggested, in progress, and completed. So required is as it sounds like. You put in a due date, that automatically makes it required. Suggested can be if it's assigned to you or it's available. In progress, yeah, makes sense. Completed makes sense. So what you can see here is I've picked one Trailhead module, because there might be some that you want to link, and it is a feature, and one URL as a user guide. But again, the walkthrough, I think it would be a great example here. And so to add a new learning item, you simply click that tab, that Manage Learning Assignments, you click New, and you pick between Trailhead module or link. It's as simple as that. If you pick Trailhead module, you find the module by searching for it. If you pick link, you put in the title, description, and the URL. So again, it can be anything you want, as long as you've got a link to it. You could then choose where you want it to appear, because that Learning Path little button is different wherever you are in the system. So you can do that by app, and you can do that by object and record. So you can really drill down. So you can say, only show this in certain areas. And what that means is when you hover over the icon, it will appear with these links. If you go into Learning Home, then you can see them all. So that bit is just about where it will surface at the very top. And you can choose to assign them to all users, no users, or you can do it by individual user or by public group. So I think that's really quite flexible. It's a bit the opposite of the prompts where it's a bit tricky. So I think thinking about these as a combination is a really effective way of bringing together these tools. And no users would just mean it's not assigned to anyone, but they can go and find it. And to make the item required, you set a due date. Okay, so really, really useful. There's really not much to see on that. I haven't got a demo of that because it is literally following these steps. So considerations, you can only have 500 of them. So I think that is more of a limit than some of the others. With, the 500 prompts, whew, that's a lot. 500 of these possibly, isn't, but I still think it's more than sufficient. And if you're actually assigning them to either a person or a public group, then they can only be assigned to 100. But a public group with 200 people in it is one assignment. So again, pretty flexible. And if you're searching for your Trailhead module and you can't find it, it's only quiz type ones. Because when they actually click on the Trailhead module, they don't go to Trailhead, they do it like in-app. I don't know if you've explored that yourselves. So that's why it's only non-hands-on ones. So not the projects, not anything with hands-on. So just to be aware of that, because that could be like you're searching for it and you can't see it. Okay. So again, hopefully you've seen how these things can come together. Another way you can surface some of this information is through the help menu and the help menu customization. So we've all seen the help menu a million times, and we've seen what Salesforce gives us, but did you know you can actually make the top section your resources? So you go into the setup menu, you go to that user engagement section again, and customize the help menu is one of those. So you add in your links and you turn it on, and this is what it looks like. The normal help and training menu, you click on it, and at the top you've got your resources. So there you can see I've got my user guide and I've got my lead walkthrough. Now the difference between this and the learning path is that the learning path I can say only show the lead walkthrough on the lead object and show the account walkthrough on the account one. So this is a bit more static, so maybe think about what you want to put here and what you want to put in the learning path. But I didn't know that this was even available to customize until a certain point I saw it. It was like, okay, I've been ignoring that and telling my users to ignore that for years. I could actually put something that's useful for them in it. Okay, and you can configure a bit more of what people see as well. So that's customizing the help menu. Again, really short and sweet example of how you can just make it a bit more easy for the users to find what they need to find to be successful. Okay, so the final thing I want to talk about, super timing, is just reminding you about conditional page layout options. Now, I'm not going to, obviously, looking at the time, I'm not going to get into that, and that could be a whole other session. There are some great sessions on things like dynamic forms and things like that really, particularly when they come on standard objects, will be game changers. But what I like to do as well is use the system to surface up different areas. So things like, silly, but like, using the set component visibility for sections. So something as simple as having a rich text box on your page layout with a prompt. So for example, you've got accounts that you're no longer allowed to do business with, and they've got a status of forbidden. Let's be dramatic, and so you want to make sure that no one starts ringing them up and start getting keen. Why aren't they doing business with us? Brilliant. This could be a great prospect, because that status field is quite small. And so something as simple as then bringing in a rich text box onto your account page layout, and then setting the component visibility, if status equals forbidden, show this box, and it appears at the top, and you can have big red writing saying this account is blocked, it's forbidden. It's forbidden to do business with them. Sample that. So bring it there. Don't let them start making notes and read up on the business, get excited about a potential new customer, only to later see that status. Or when they go to create a new opportunity, they get an error message. But by then, they're already frustrated. Why isn't it clearer? And that, to me, is just, again, something so simple that can really make a difference and make it obvious. They go, oh, no, move on. Next customer, please. That isn't for me. They've not wasted any time, which I think is, everyone is grateful for that. Yeah, and again, page layout, so much more you can do, whole other sessions for sure, but to me that just is a tiny little thing that you can do in the system, all free of charge, easy peasy, and just makes the user experience so much better. Okay, so, absolutely spot on timing. We have 5 minutes left. I've talked very quickly because I wanted to make sure I covered all the content, but now I do have 5 minutes to answer any questions that anyone may have of me, or Cody's plural. So, yeah, does anyone have any questions? Has anyone got an experience with the tools? Yes.
Wondering, can you use custom labels for the header, title, description, and button labels?
I don't believe so at this time, but I can totally see that would be something coming in the future. At the moment, I don't believe there's any way to put anything like that in them. I'd be happily told.
Is there any other way to translate them?
Translating, I think you can use Translation Workbench with it. But bear in mind the buttons are all custom. So you type in. So the both buttons, you have to say what you want it to say. And thinking about the prompts, I don't think there's anything on there that you don't write yourself. So from that point of view, like from a language point of view, you'd be able to do it. But of course, what you'd need to do, and then think about with the prompts, it would be an option. Walkthroughs, obviously, the limitations would restrict it. But potentially, then at the beginning, you might have to have a French lead prompt and a German lead prompt, and then use something maybe again. Once we can get permission sets working with them, you could potentially have something like that. A bit of a fudge, but yeah, I believe Translation Workbench should be able to be in the mix, but look, I'd need to double check that. But yeah, because otherwise it's going to be a bit more cumbersome, isn't it? Yes.
From the demo that you showed,
Yeah.
when we do prompt,
Mm-hmm.
then there's a section where you need to choose how many times the
Mm-hmm.
prompt will come out. So, logical thinking, maybe we should say at least one time in 24 hours, right?
Mm-hmm.
My question is there any way that we can make it fully customized? I mean, for example, for my case, I only want to show it on the, let's say, trailhead menu.
Mm-hmm.
I do not want my users to keep on seeing that. It's only by request,
Yeah.
on demand.
Yeah.
Is that the way?
Yeah, so essentially, I mean, you could put it in so it doesn't surface it automatically at all, and then you just have it generated by the link. So that would be meeting your requirement then. So you could then say, because the default 24-hour is for all prompts together. So it's saying don't show more than 24-hour. But if you built one in and you said you wanted it, or the worst case, once every 365 days, that just means it's going to come unprompted, if you will. But using the link to generate it on demand, that doesn't count. That won't. So let me just rephrase that. So if you have stated that you don't want them to appear more than once a month, and then they go and click on the link from where you put it in the help menu or the learning path, it won't not appear because of that. It will appear. So that it bypasses those limits because they're asking for it rather than you're pushing it to them. So yeah, and I think that there is a lot to be said for that, and that's why I highlighted both the help menu and I think more customized the learning path, because getting the information in the system is great. Getting it on the page is great, particularly for new users or new features, where you want it to be, you need everyone to know that we've enabled a new feature. Opportunity page now looks completely different. So you're going live over the weekend with opportunity paths or a whole new section or something, some big thing. When they log on Monday, you want them all to see that. It's your way of saying we have this new feature. So that you definitely, you want those to be surfaced. But I think the clever way of using them, so that they know it's just there, it's just at a click of a button, they can get that walkthrough that's going to jump them to the lead object and then take them through that path. That's a really clever usage of it. But that's why I've talked through different use cases, because I think that ones like the marketing one popping up, the new user one, new feature, I think that prompts are really, really valuable with that. But then I think with the reminding them of certain things or helping them through certain processes, then you maybe want them to be able to generate that when they want it. Okay. And did anyone not get, and lots of you didn't get because I was giving them out before we started, I do have some Astros holding tulips here, which is pretty cool. So, so Melissa definitely wants one. But did anyone have any other questions? I think we've maybe got just about minus a minute. Everyone or Johan, who's going first? As in a screen flow? I don't believe so. But I wonder if it's on the roadmap. Yeah, I'm pretty confident not at the moment, but targeted is quite new. So targeted is being rolled out to more things, so maybe that's another one. Okay, well, while I give out Astros, Johan, what was your question? Ooh. Well, yeah, exactly. But so very similar, and obviously much more polished because it's a paid-for option. It's been out in the market for a long time. But what I think these walkthroughs offer is a free option for users to try them out. So yeah, absolutely. There's lots of competition with those ones, but they're not necessarily available for all businesses, are they? Okay, well, I think that's me done. Yes, I'm getting a definitely done sign. So thank you, everyone. And if anyone wants an Astro, come find me. I have actually got quite a few, so you can come find me at any point. I'll just take all this stuff off now.